Greetings and welcome to Cooking with Squirrel. If you're new here, I'm the Squirrel. Today's recipe is going to be called Casserole Sydney. It's for a friend of mine named Sydney, right here. She's from the Girls Play channel on YouTube. You can check them out either down in the description or up here in the corner. They're a super funny group of girls and a lot of fun. Just check them out, they're awesome. So she's into potatoes, shepherd's pies, casseroles. So I kind of smashed all that together and we're gonna make a cousin or maybe cousin once removed of the shepherd's pie. Definitely not a shepherd's pie, but it's adjacent. The filling's gonna be done with turkey. So you could maybe call this a poultryman pie. I looked up what a turkey farmer's called. They're called poultrymen. So she does not like onions, so we're doing shallots, which she does like, and we're doing some celery and carrot for our mirepoix, and then, like any good casserole in the United States, some cream of mushroom soup. So, and then our mash will be Yukon Gold potatoes, sour cream, and Kerrygold butter. Let's get into the prep. I'm gonna go peel and wash some potatoes. I'm not gonna make you watch me do that. Slicing taters. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna do a third of these into 1/8 inch slices. I'm gonna use a mandolin. You could also use a food processor with a slicer blade. You could use a regular knife. Just kind of try and keep your slices the same size. What we need to do is we have two 8x8 casserole dishes here, and what we need is one layer in each of these twice. So we're gonna do a layer that covers each on the bottom, and then we're gonna need another layer to be like the center layer of the casserole. So the easiest way to do that is just lay them in and then set the stack aside. So that's what we're gonna do. So let's get slicing. The bigger ones are gonna be easier. And so we'll start with that, and watch your fingers. These things are murder machines. And what I do is, because we're gonna use the other potatoes for mashed potatoes, stop before I get to the end. I don't need to get all the way down. So we're gonna take that little nub, set it off to the side. We're gonna grab our stack of taters and we're gonna lay them into our casserole dish and see how much we have. We want these slightly overlapped. Doesn't have to be perfect, just mostly covering. That's one layer, and we'll just do that 3 more times. Mashed potato time. All right, so we got all of our potatoes sliced up. I'm gonna set these to the side. We'll need them later. These don't really, the Yukon Golds don't really brown when they sit out in the air, so you don't have to worry about that too much. If you're using a different potato that does brown, you might want to hold these in water and then you can drain them out later, but I'm just going to set these to the side. We're going to cut up our remaining potatoes to be boiled to make mashed potatoes for the topping. So we're going to just cut these into kind of medium chunks. And you can make your mash any way you want to make your mash. The smaller you cut your pieces, the faster they cook, but they also get a little more water in the mash, so you kind of got to balance that. Just make sure most of your pieces are the same size so they cook at the same rate. All right, that's our taters done. We're gonna fill this, we're just gonna cover this with water, get a little bit of salt in there, actually a good amount of salt in there, and get it on the stove and get it boiling. Prepping mirepoix. For our mirepoix, we're gonna do shallots. We're gonna do 6 ounces of shallots. These are monsters, so I only needed 2 of them. So we're gonna slice these pole to pole. And that one's rotten. That happens sometimes, folks. Let me grab another one. Luckily, I have some more. So pole to pole again. Hope for not rotten. That one's good. And we'll nip the tip off, which makes it easier to peel. And we're gonna peel this down to good. And if you get a layer with mold on it, go another layer deeper. You don't want to eat that part. So we're gonna slice these into half moons, maybe 1/8 of an inch thick. Doesn't have to be super precise. It's all gonna get cooked down. The secret ingredient of today's dish is the tears of a squirrel. Luckily, I don't actually need to see to cut because I can't see very well right now. Do it blind. Let me know if there's blood. Okay, let's get our shallots onto a plate for staging. If you don't have a bench scraper, super handy tool. This is a heavy duty metal one The cheap plastic ones are pretty awesome also. Next, recipe calls for one large, hold on, I'm gonna go wipe my eyes from tears. So the recipe calls for a large rib of celery. You can see these are kind of small, so I'm doing 2. And we just want to do kind of a small dice kind of situation, so we'll cut these into some strips. That'll work. Punch them all up, and off we go. You could also mulch this up in a food processor. I just did figure I wanted to get it dirty today. Now for another fun trick, we're gonna grate our carrot. 1/4-inch box holes and just grate the whole carrot. One large carrot. The more carrot there is, the sweeter the filling will be. That's kind of your, whatever your jam is. Add more or less to your own taste. Refrain from grating your knuckles. And this is a cool grater. It's got a bottom that holds everything in. And that's our mirepoix done. So let's get set up with a burner and we'll get started on our actual meat sauce. Meat sauce. We're gonna get our pan over kind of medium heat, medium high. Go in with about 2 tablespoons of neutral oil. So I want some sizzle when it goes in immediately. Like that. All right, let's go with all of our veg. We're not trying to really brown anything. We're just gonna try and soften and cook it down a little bit. And we're using a saucier, which is a high-walled pan. You can use any kind of like high-walled saute pan that you have, because we're gonna make the sauce in here. Big pinch of salt. Start drawing out some of the liquid from the onions and vegetables and make it taste tasty. And if your pan looks a little dry like mine does right now, you can add a little more oil. Our veg has cooked down and is softened quite a bit, and we're getting a little bit of color on some of it. So what we're gonna do is grab our 2 pounds of 85-15 turkey. Don't get the 97.3, that stuff's way too lean. You need fat in this. You need the fat to make it delicious. So we're gonna go in with this. Bloop. We're just looking to cook this through. We're not really looking to brown it. And if you're using a stainless steel like me, at some point you might have to deglaze a little bit. A little bit of water would be fine. You do some white wine, you know, whatever you want to get any fond build up off the bottom. There's just a little bit forming there. But if you're using a non-stick, you won't have that issue at all. All right, so at this stage, we're about halfway cooked through. I've got 2 teaspoons of Morton's Coarse Kosher salt, and we're gonna drop that in here and get it mixed in. So if you want your clumps of meat really tiny, we have a trick we can do. That is the potato masher. It's one of the best tricks for getting really finely squished up ground meat. And this will also help get that salt really well incorporated throughout. And we want to cook this until the meat's cooked all the way through and it's fairly dry. You can see it's a little bit moist in here still. We still got a little bit of pink, so go a little bit longer. All the pink's out of our meat. We're gonna add our final ingredient, which is the staple of all American casseroles, cream of mushroom soup. I'm using the cream of mushroom with roasted garlic, which is delicious if you can find it. If not, use whatever you can find. Go in with a can. Scrape out all the goodness. Turn this off and mix this in well. So that's our sauce done. We're gonna set it to the side and we're gonna work on our mashed potato. So we're gonna test the potatoes and see if they're tender. So we're gonna take a knife point, stick it in, and it should be super easy to penetrate. And those are good. Go into a colander in the sink. Go back into our pot. So we have our 2/3 of the 5 pounds of potatoes here in a mash. We've got my masher. We're gonna do a rough mash with that initially. We have our potatoes rough mashed. We're gonna go in with 1 cup of sour cream because we want a tangy topping. We've got rich in the middle and plain potatoes in the middle. And now we're going to have some delicious tangy mashed potatoes. 2 teaspoons of salt. Mix that in until everything is homogeneous. Make sure you stop and scrape down the sides. Check and pull everything out of the corners. Make sure you're getting everything well incorporated. And if you have a shorter pot than I have, it's probably easier. Taste for seasoning and smoothness. Oh man, that's so good. I just realized that I forgot to put black pepper in our sauce, which is an awful oversight. I like a lot, so I'm gonna probably go somewhere in the 2 teaspoons neighborhood, which is quite a lot. Adjust for you, maybe start with a teaspoon, taste, see what you think. So we'll stir that in. Assembly, here we go. So the first thing I'm gonna do is we're gonna need quarters of this sauce. So what I'm gonna do is even this out a little bit, roughly even, and then I'm going to segregate it into quarters. That just makes it easier to know how much to put in each layer. We come in with our pans. Now, the reason that we're doing 2 8x8s is that Sydney's husband does not like peas, but Sydney does. So one of these will get frozen peas, one will not. We're gonna start with maybe a tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil in the bottom of the pan. Spread that around a little bit. Cover the whole bottom, just to keep our potatoes from sticking. And it's a nice flavor. You wouldn't think that you can taste that olive oil in the final dish because there's so much else going on, but you really can. And we'll start with our potatoes. Since we laid them out in the beginning, we should have just about the right amount. And you can see these potatoes have been out for about an hour. They haven't browned at all. No oxidation. Oxidation, I can say words. Sometimes I can even say them properly. Okay, first layer of taters done. Let's go in with our first layer of meat sauce. Kind of shake it on to spread it loosely. Get it nice and even. There we go. For Sydney's side, we will do a even layer of frozen sweet peas. As much or as little as you like. Kind of pat them in. We're gonna rinse and repeat, just like a lasagna. Not a lasagna though. All right, we're gonna come in with our mash. We're just gonna fill these casseroles up. So this one obviously will get a little more because it didn't have peas. That's totally fine. So we're gonna kind of dollop this in so we don't have to spread it as far. And if you end up not being able to get it all in there, just save some mashed potatoes for later. You can go a little over the top so the mashed potatoes won't go anywhere. And we're gonna bake this on it. Oh, speaking of baking, preheat your oven to 350. Try and keep your edges clean. You might get a little burnt mashed potato there if you don't. Looking good. All right, our last trick before we go in the oven. We're gonna take a fork and we're gonna drag it across the top and create some ridges so that we get some nice crunchy bits. So we'll just all the way across the top in nice lines. Yeah, we'll go across both ways. Kind of evens the whole surface out. Works great. Clean our edges a little. Onto a baking sheet. And into the oven for probably about an hour. We'll start checking at 45 minutes. We want the potatoes, the sliced potatoes to be tender and the interior temperature to be in the 185-ish region because it takes that long for the potatoes to get tender. Gremolata. This is not strictly necessary, but there's a really nice easy topping that you can make. This is a saucy gremolata, so it's not a traditional gremolata, but it's just going to be lemon zest, lemon juice, grated garlic, some flat leaf parsley, also known as Italian parsley, and some olive oil. That's it. And we're going to get that into a bowl, mix it up, and that'll be our topping for later. Zest 1 lemon. I've said this in other videos, but I like short strands, so I'm not doing the traditional kind of like long pulls. I'm doing small, quick, short cuts. Not shortcuts, short cuts. I'll fix it. So that's our lemon zest. We'll do 1 clove of garlic. We will cut the lemon in half. Save 1/2 for later, and we will do 1/2 of a lemon juice. This is a really big bunch of parsley. I'm going to take maybe the top 1/3 off, and I'll pick out any big stems, but smaller stems I'm not super worried about. Start with a kind of a rough chop. And we're just going to keep working through this until we have a nice fine mince. You can do this like in a mini food chopper if you have one. I do, I just don't want to make it dirty. I'm fairly pleased with that. We're going to do a little bit of extra virgin olive oil, maybe 2 tablespoons. It's a little bit like a Brazilian chimichurri, just kind of adjacent because it's herby, acid, oil kind of situation. Big pinch of salt, a little more oil. You kind of got to do this by eye. We want it to be a little bit saucy, not like greasy, but just kind of work with it until it's kind of a sauce consistency. There we go. A little taste. Oh, that's good. We're at about 45 minutes. We're gonna check doneness. Still a little low on the temp, and I can still feel resistance on the potatoes, so we'll let that keep going. We'll give it another, I'm gonna say 20 minutes, and we'll see you back then. All right, it's been 20 minutes. Let's give it another check. Okay, temperature's looking good. The potato feels tender. And now what we're gonna do is we're going to put this on low broil. Pay close attention to this. You do not wanna burn this. So we're gonna set short timers and check it every couple minutes. So we'll go 2 minutes on a low broil and check. This is getting close. We're gonna give it a little bit longer. Go another about a minute. You can hear that. Nice and crispy on top. There we go. Beautiful, beautiful. Now we're gonna let this rest for about 30 minutes. Super bubbly hot right now. We wanna chill out for a little bit, and then we'll slice it and taste it. We're cooled off. It's been about 30 minutes, and we're gonna cut some of this out of here. Cut it in quarters. Quarters probably a little big for most people, but I'm a big boy. This looks like my piece right here. Gremolata sauce. Add a nice fresh pop to all these rich flavors. Now the camera needs to eat. Now let's get this in my face hole. Really delicious. Lots of meaty flavors, and then you've got creamy mashed potatoes that are a little bit tangy from the sour cream, but really rich, and then kind of bright, acidic, fresh Gremolata sauce on top. Fantastic. Sydney, I hope you enjoy this. I hope you make it. If you do, tag me on Instagram. Obviously the other batch has no peas in it for your husband, so do that for him. You could do this whole thing in a 9x13 and kind of just split it down the middle as well. You don't have to do it in 8x8s. If you have any positivity in your life, please try and pay it forward. Go out, do something nice for somebody today, make the world a little bit better place. Please check out Girls Play on YouTube and Twitch. I'll leave links down below. And thanks for stopping by, and if you're interested in watching another one of my videos, please check it out up here. And if you want to check out my food and philanthropy videos, which is why I started the channel, there'll be a playlist of those down here. Bye-bye. I'm recording all this, by the way. No. If this is how I'm doing it, something is wrong, especially if there's a grater involved.